So, have you ever stood at an airport check-in desk, looked the agent right in the eye, and just, completely and utterly blanked out?
Oh, absolutely. It is the universal travel nightmare.
Right, because you know exactly the feeling. You're standing there, and the line behind you is practically breathing down your neck,
Yeah,
right?
the pressure is real.
And your passport is getting sweaty in your hand,
Yeah.
and suddenly your brain just deletes the entire English language.
It just completely goes offline.
Exactly. You forget how to say a really simple phrase like window seat, and you end up just staring at the agent, maybe gesturing vaguely at the sky, and they just look back at you in total confusion.
What is fascinating here is that this actually happens to highly proficient speakers, too.
Wait, really? So it is not just beginners?
Oh, not at all. It is not necessarily a lack of preparation or vocabulary. What you are experiencing in that moment is this massive spike in cognitive overload.
Cognitive overload. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because an airport is what anthropologists sometimes call a liminal space, or, a non-place.
A non-place. What does that mean?
Well, it is an environment that is engineered purely for mass processing. Normal social rules are kind of suspended, and the sensory input is just completely overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, you are worried about your documents, the departure time, the weight of your luggage. You are probably wondering if you remembered to lock your front door.
Exactly. The fight or flight response just kicks in, and when that happens, the language center of your brain essentially shuts down.
So the mission of today's deep dive is to basically rescue you from that specific panic.
Which is a very worthy mission, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
We're unpacking a massive stack of language guides, aviation communication protocols, and travel linguistics to really break down the linguistic architecture of the airport.
Right, so you do not have to feel like you are just surviving the experience.
Exactly. We are dividing this high-stress journey into 3 really simple zones so you never have to panic or freeze up again.
And understanding the system is the absolute key here. Navigating an airport is not about memorizing, a static list of vocabulary words like you were studying a high school textbook.
Right. Nobody wants to do that.
It is about recognizing that an airport has its own distinct culture. It has its own rhythm and its own expected scripts.
So you just have to know your lines in the script.
Pretty much. The moment you understand the institutional machinery you are interacting with, the required language just naturally falls right into place.
Okay, let us unpack this. We are going to walk you from the automatic doors of the terminal right through to the moment your flight departs.
And before you can even think about the sky, you have to deal with the physical reality of the ground.
Yeah, which brings us to Zone 1, which is check-in and bag drop, the first big hurdle.
Because you have to process the heavy stuff you are carrying before you can move freely through the system.
Which is where we hit our first major linguistic and logistical distinction. We have to clearly separate a checked bag from a carry-on bag.
Right. And for a lot of travelers, luggage is just luggage. A bag is a bag.
But in the language of the airport, you are defining the legal custody of the item.
Exactly. A checked bag is that larger suitcase you are illegally transferring to the airline. It disappears onto a conveyor belt and travels down in the cargo hold.
Right. It is kind of like checking a heavy winter coat at a fancy restaurant. It goes away to a hidden room. You do not see it again until the end.
That is a great analogy. And then a carry-on bag remains in your custody, up in the cabin, like keeping your purse or briefcase right at your table.
And getting that terminology mixed up at the desk immediately jams the gears of the whole process.
Oh, it really does.
Because if you point to a massive 50-pound suitcase and call it your carry-on, the agent has to stop, correct you, and reprocess the whole interaction.
You are no longer moving with the rhythm of the system.
Right, you broke the flow.
Precisely. And because you are interacting with a highly timed, data-driven system, your language needs to adapt to that.
So we need to stop over-explaining.
Exactly. When people get stressed, their natural instinct is to over-explain. They lean into narrative.
Like, if they lose a boarding pass, they want to tell the agent this huge long story about how their phone battery died in the taxi because they forgot their charger.
Right. But the system does not care about your narrative. The system only requires data.
Let us actually look at how that dynamic plays out. Instead of just talking about the theory, let us simulate a high-stress interaction at the check-in desk.
Okay, I like this.
We will use the scripts from our curriculum materials. I will play the passenger, and let us say I'm already sweating because I cannot find my digital boarding pass.
You are already in panic mode.
Exactly. I want to tell you my whole life story, but I am going to try to just stick to the data. You play the polite but firm check-in agent.
All right. I am behind the monitor, typing away. Next in line, please. Hello, where are you flying today?
Hi, I am flying to London. I'm sorry I cannot find my boarding pass on my phone, but here's my passport.
That is no problem. I can pull up your reservation with the passport. Are you checking any bags today?
Yes, I have one bag to check, and this backpack is my carry-on.
Excellent. Please place your checked bag on the scale. And do you have a seat preference?
Can I get an aisle seat, please?
Let me check the map. Yes, I can put you in an aisle seat. Here is your printed boarding pass. Have a great flight.
Okay, stepping out of the simulation for a second. What really stand out to me there is how modular the communication is.
Modular is a good word for it.
Because when I could not find my boarding pass, I did not explain why I could not find it. I just stated the problem. I cannot find my boarding pass.
And then you immediately provided the alternative data point the system needs to function. You said, here is my passport.
And that is exactly how you prevent language paralysis.
Right.
You strip away all that conversational padding.
Yes, you said, I have one bag to check. It is incredibly brief, but it is a procedural trigger. You are giving the agent the exact phrase they need to just hit print on the luggage tag.
And I specifically requested an aisle seat using a direct, simple request. And just to clarify for the listener, the aisle seat is the one right next to the walkway, as opposed to the window seat.
Right. In an institutional setting like this, clarity is actually the highest form of politeness. You're saving everyone time.
But let me push back on that idea of total control for a second, because that simulation was very, very clean.
It was a best-case scenario.
What happens when the system pushes back against you? Let us say I went entirely overboard at the gift shop, I put my bag on the scale, and the agent gives me that dreaded slow head shake.
Oh, the overweight bag scenario.
Yes. How do we negotiate the bad news of an overweight bag without just losing our cool?
This is a crucial point because this is where panic really sets in. When the agent says, I am sorry, your bag is overweight, you suddenly feel like you are being penalized.
Yeah, you feel like you were in trouble.
And the instinct is to either argue with them or just completely freeze up. But you actually have immense agency here if you know the right questions to ask.
So what do we ask?
Well, you can accept the penalty by asking, what is the fee for an overweight bag?
Okay, that is straightforward.
Or you can reclaim control of the situation by asking, can I take some things out?
Can I take some things out? That is so powerful. I mean, it involves the classic airport walk of shame.
Opening your suitcase right there on the floor.
Yeah, aggressively stuffing heavy sweaters into your backpack while everyone watches. But just knowing you have the linguistic tools to ask, can I take some things out? It shifts you from being a victim of the system to an active participant in it.
It changes the entire power dynamic of the interaction. You are proposing a solution using the system's own rules.
And once you resolve that, you transfer your luggage, your hands are finally free, and you move to the next phase.
Which brings us to zone 2.
Yes, zone 2. You leave the relatively polite world of customer service and walk directly into the most intimidating high-stakes bottleneck of the modern world.
The security check.
It is so stressful.
It is. If check-in is about giving up your luggage, security is about giving up your personal autonomy. And the language of the airport shifts dramatically to reflect that reality.
You are no longer treated as a customer, right? You are treated as a potential risk that needs to be processed.
Exactly. The auditory environment alone is staggering.
Oh, it is completely chaotic. You have machines beeping everywhere, announcements blaring overhead, and the agents are just barking these rapid-fire commands.
And they are not using please or thank you here. It is just staccato bursts of verbs and nouns.
Because they are using language as a behavioral filter. They are processing thousands of people, and the communication is intentionally algorithmic.
Right. You are going to be hit with phrases like, take off your shoes, put your laptop in the bin, liquids out of the bag.
And for anyone listening, a bin in this context is that plastic tray that rolls along the X-ray conveyor belt.
Yes, the little gray trays.
But I want to really linger on the psychological impact of this environment. If English is not your first language, or honestly, even if it is and you were just exhausted, having someone shout, laptops in the bin, liquids out, it can trigger a literal deer in the headlights response.
It triggers that freeze response we talked about earlier. When you feel threatened, your brain reroutes energy away from complex language processing.
So let us look at the absolute worst way to handle this, which our sources explicitly highlight as a major, major mistake travelers make.
Let us stress test it. You be the overwhelmed traveler whose brain has just shut down. I will be the barking security officer processing the line at top speed.
Okay, I'm ready. Do your worst.
Step forward. Empty your pockets. Take off your shoes and belt, laptops out of the bag and in a separate bin. Sir, are there any liquids in that bag?
Ben.
Sir, I asked if you have liquids. Water bottles, shampoo, you need to take them out right now.
Yes. Sorry, yes. Okay, let us break character and dissect what just happened there. I completely froze. You were escalating the commands, and the imaginary line behind me was getting restless.
It is a very common scenario.
But what is the actual danger of nodding and saying yes when you have absolutely no idea what was just shouted at you?
The danger is that the security agent is highly trained to interpret confusion or evasive answers as deceptive behavior.
Oh, wow. So they think you're hiding something.
Exactly. If you pretend to understand and agree to a question you did not comprehend, you are not just slowing down the line, you are elevating your own threat profile.
So you are basically flagging yourself.
Yeah, it almost guarantees your bag will be pulled aside for a physical search, which is just going to escalate your stress even further.
So we need a circuit breaker. We need a way to stop that algorithmic escalation before it gets out of hand. What is the linguistic ripcord the listener can pull in that exact moment?
It is a very specific, very respectful phrase that you should commit to memory right now. When the panic sets in, you look at the agent and say clearly, "Sorry, I do not understand. Could you speak slowly?"
Sorry, I do not understand. Could you speak slowly? It feels almost too simple. How does that actually fix the problem?
It works because it fundamentally alters the agent's threat assessment.
How so?
Well, security personnel are highly trained to deal with international travelers all day long. When you freeze and mumble, you register as a potential anomaly or threat.
Right.
But when you clearly and calmly state, "Could you speak slowly?" you immediately reframe the whole interaction. You are signaling to them, "I am fully cooperative, but we are just experiencing a mechanical communication error."
That is brilliant. It takes the hostility right out of the air. You are not arguing with their authority. You are just asking them to adjust the bandwidth of the communication.
Exactly. And almost universally, the agent's tone will shift. They will start incorporating hand gestures, they will point to the bins, and they will articulate their instructions at a manageable pace.
It is a psychological hack disguised as a polite request.
It really is.
Okay, so we have successfully utilized that hack. We have gathered our shoes, our laptop, and our shredded dignity out of the plastic bins, and we are moving into Zone 3.
The waiting game.
Yes, we are finally heading toward the actual aircraft.
And here we encounter a surprisingly common linguistic trap that catches a lot of learners off guard.
What is that?
Well, if you look at your ticket and you look at your travel companion, the logical instinct is to say, "Okay, let us go to the plane."
Which, to be fair, is physically what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
You want to get inside the airplane.
It translates perfectly in a literal sense, yes, but it totally fails the logic of the airport system.
Why is that?
The airplane is a massive, multi-ton vehicle parked out on the tarmac. You, as a passenger, cannot navigate to the airplane yourself. The architecture of the building isolates you from it.
Right, you're stuck inside.
So the destination you're actually navigating to inside the terminal is the gate?
The gate. It is the portal. It is that specific numbered door you have to funnel through.
Exactly. If you stop an airport employee and ask, "Excuse me, where is the airplane?" they are going to look out the massive glass windows at the 50 identical jets parked outside and have no idea how to help you.
They will just think you are lost in every sense of the word.
Which is why fluency in travel linguistics requires adopting the institutional vocabulary. You do not ask about the plane, you ask about the infrastructure.
So you would say, where is gate B12? Or when do we board at gate C4?
Precisely. And once you find that gate, you enter the most universally frustrating phase of travel.
Oh, the delay.
Yeah.
You are staring at the monitor, and there is that dreaded flashing red text.
Let us clarify the vocabulary of time here, because it can be surprisingly ambiguous when you are in a high-stress state.
Right.
If the board says your flight is on time, the system is functioning as scheduled. If the board says delayed, it strictly means the flight is leaving later than the originally scheduled time.
The problem with the word delayed on a monitor is that it just completely lacks context.
Right, it gives you no details.
It could mean a 10-minute delay because
Yeah.
they are loading extra snacks, or it could mean a 4-hour delay because of a massive thunderstorm over the Atlantic.
Wow.
You inevitably have to go ask the gate agent for clarification.
And approaching the gate agent requires a very specific type of diplomacy.
Because they are stressed too.
Exactly. They are usually typing furiously on their computers, they are managing complex logistics, and they are surrounded by hundreds of anxious people. Walking up and demanding when do we leave is direct, but it is incredibly abrasive.
It puts them immediately on the defensive. I mean, they're not hiding the plane from you on purpose.
Exactly. So how do we extract the information we need while maintaining that diplomatic buffer?
We use indirect questions.
Yes. You utilize indirect questions. You start by softening the approach. Excuse me.
Okay, excuse me.
Then verify the context so they know which flight you are actually asking about. Excuse me, is this the flight to Chicago?
That makes sense.
Once they confirm that, you deploy the indirect question. Could you tell me if the flight is on time or delayed?
Could you tell me if the flight is on time or delayed? I really love the architecture of that sentence.
It is very effective.
Because instead of just demanding the time, you are politely asking if they have the capacity to share information with you.
Okay.
It acknowledges their authority and significantly increases the chances you will get a helpful, detailed response rather than a dismissive one.
It is all about friction reduction. And speaking of reducing friction, eventually that delay ends.
Finally.
You board the aircraft, you buckle your seatbelt, and the physics of the journey finally take over. Which brings us to some of the most dynamic vocabulary in aviation.
Yes, the phrasal verbs used for flight. This is one of my favorite linguistic quirks in English.
Our sources emphasize two critical phrasal verbs here, take off and touch down.
And what is really fascinating is how these words carry so much kinetic energy.
English phrasal verbs often combine a verb of action with a spatial particle to indicate a change of state. It perfectly mirrors the physical reality of aviation.
Right. The plane does not just leave. It takes off.
Take off.
The word take implies grasping or capturing something, and off implies separation. When a plane takes off, it feels active, like it is pulling itself away from the grip of gravity. It is such an incredibly visual phrase.
It really is. And the inverse is just as literal. Touchdown.
Touchdown.
It describes the exact, precise second that a rubber of the wheels makes physical contact with the earth. The flight is not truly over until the aircraft touches down.
So if you are coordinating with someone picking you up at the airport, you would say, my flight takes off at 2 p.m. and it touches down at 5 p.m.
It is concise and leaves no room for ambiguity.
And having that precision is what separates a stressed traveler from a confident one. Knowing the mechanics of the three zones gets your physical body onto the aircraft, sure, but adopting the polite, institutional rhythm of the language is what actually makes the journey manageable.
Let us talk a bit more about that rhythm, because knowing the literal words is one thing, but sounding natural and de-escalating tension in these shared spaces is the ultimate goal of travel fluency.
Right. Take something as simple as finding a bathroom while you're waiting at the gate.
If you approach a stranger or an employee and bluntly ask, "Where is the toilet?" well, you have successfully communicated your need. The data has been transferred.
But it feels incredibly jarring. It lacks any of the cultural padding we expect in public interactions.
Exactly. In high-stress environments, polite language acts as a shock absorber. Native speakers intuitively pad their requests to soften the intrusion.
So what should they say instead?
Instead of "Where's the toilet?" a much more natural and effective phrasing is, "Could you point me to the restroom?"
Could you point me to the restroom? It is subtle, but it completely changes the dynamic.
How so?
Asking someone to point you towards something implies you only need a tiny bit of directional assistance. You are not demanding they stop what they are doing to draw you a comprehensive map. It is a very low-stakes request.
That is a great way to look at it. We see that same padding when talking about the flight itself. We established earlier that saying, "I am waiting for the plane," sounds a bit rudimentary.
Right.
A fluent speaker navigating the system will say, "I'm waiting to board the flight."
I am waiting to board the flight. It really acknowledges the process. So, to pull all of this together, we have covered an immense amount of ground today.
We really have.
We started in Zone 1, check-in and bag drop, where we learned to separate our checked bags from our carry-ons. And more importantly, we learned to strip away the narrative and give the system the clear data it needs.
Keep it modular.
Exactly. We then navigated Zone 2, security. We explored the psychology of cognitive overload, recognized the staccato commands as a behavioral filter, and armed ourselves with the ultimate circuit breaker.
Sorry, I do not understand. Could you speak slowly?
Finally, we conquered Zone 3, the gate. We learned to navigate to the architectural portal rather than the literal airplane. We mastered the art of the polite, indirect question to handle delays, and we explored the kinetic energy of taking off and touching down.
You now have the linguistic blueprint to move through the airport without ever freezing up again.
It really all comes down to participating in the system rather than being overwhelmed by it.
Absolutely.
So we want to hear from you. Have you ever traveled to an international destination where you had to navigate the intense cognitive load of an airport in a second language? Or is a massive international trip currently on your bucket list? Let us know how you plan to use these strategies in the 3 zones next time you fly.
And as you think about your next departure, I'm going to leave you with one final thought to mull over. Something that connects everything we have discussed today to a much older history.
Oh, I like the sound of this.
We spent this deep dive talking about boarding the flight, navigating to the gate, and the captain preparing to take off. Next time you travel, consider this. How much of our modern aviation vocabulary was actually inherited directly from ancient sailing ships?
Wait, really?
Oh, yeah. Words like captain, boarding, fleet, cabin, and even the concepts of port and starboard on the aircraft. It turns out, despite all our modern technology and jet engines, we navigate the sky using the exact same linguistic architecture that humanity used to navigate the oceans centuries ago.
That is an incredible perspective. Flying really is just sailing through the clouds. Well, the next time you find yourself standing at that check-in desk and the agent asks you a question, you are not going to panic.
No panic allowed.
You are going to take a breath, remember your zones, and sail right through the system. Keep learning, stay curious, and safe travels.